Hi, beauties. Welcome back to Cultivating Clarity. You can see I have a microphone now, and I'm hoping that that will just take care of all of the sound quality issues. So thank you for bearing with last week if you watched that. So I'm not sure what episode this is, but I'm having so much fun and I just appreciate your support and would love to hear from you anytime, whether you want to ask me to cover some questions that you have or anything that you'd like to sort through, or you just have feedback about something that you gleaned from one of the episodes. Okay? Today, I want to talk to you about identifying needs and drawing boundaries. Because in my coaching, I often hear people saying, well, I don't know how to identify my own needs. And I didn't know that either. And a lot of people say, I don't know how to draw boundaries. I know I need boundaries, but I'm clueless on how to do that. Chances are you do know what you need, but we have practiced stuffing those needs, so we don't know. Chances are you're already drawing boundaries, but you need more, and you don't recognize the boundaries that you do have as boundaries. So let's talk through that. Back in late 2020 or late 2021, I can't remember because these last 3 years have been a blur. I took a small group class with a few ladies from my church called Spiritual Discoveries. And if you are a Christian and you want to hear more about why you behave the way you do and draw closer to God, highly recommend the course. Okay. If you're not, that's okay. We're going to pick at that right now. So, in that course, it talks a lot about emotion. And the root of emotion is to move or to stir up, okay, which we can imagine because we all have emotions, right? And I'm going to read the definition. So, the definition of emotion is a mental state that arises spontaneously rather than through conscious effort, often accompanied by physical symptoms. Okay, I was going to say that one more time. Emotion is a mental state that arises spontaneously rather than through conscious effort, often accompanied by physical symptoms. Okay, so when you're talking about your needs and boundaries, a lot of times you're going to find that easiest through the emotions that you have. And because most emotions are that spontaneous instant reaction, they're going to give you a huge clue into what you need. So, what's an exercise that we did in this course is actually something that I go back to often. And it is identifying your primary feeling. Okay. So hang with me here. So when you feel a feeling, not always, but oftentimes it can be the secondary feeling and it's rooted in something else. Now, I'm not a therapist and I'm not here to provide you therapy, but I do just want to make you aware of that because that was very eye opening for me. A lot of people were always surprised to find that I get angry often. I got angry often. And I hid it well. I controlled it well and I didn't fly off the handle all the time. But I was angry a lot. And certain things would make me very angry right away, like get fired up. And I grew to be able to work through that. But what I didn't realize that for me, anger was a secondary emotion. So when I got digging at what are things that I get angry about and why does that bother me? Why does that set me off? I found that anger, I'm going to say 95% of the time is rooted in insecurity. That's how I grew up. I grew up very insecure, some emotional abuse, and everything from feeling foolish to feeling taken advantage of or not appreciated, everything boiled back down to that insecurity for me. And how I identified that was, and I'm gonna link this in the comments so that you can look at that. Because like I said, I go back to this often. And by the way, I fully recognize that emotions don't all have to be bad. I'm referring to how to find what you need and draw your boundaries. And a lot of times that comes from a negative emotion that you're having. So there's this chart in this workbook, and the top one is painful and unpleasant emotions. And the bottom one is pleasant emotions. So what I like to do is when I'm feeling something that I can't identify and work through, I've gotten so much better at it because I practiced. But at first, I really had to tick off, and you can see I've made marks all over this. I used pencil a lot so I could erase, but I would tick off like, what was I feeling? And then I would narrow it down to be able to get to the root of that feeling. So then when we know the root of our feeling, we can then move into asking ourselves, what is it I need? What boundary might I need to draw for myself? Okay. So that can look like so many things. And this is something that I work with my coaching clients to identify. A lot of times there's multiple things, but you want to start with one that you can implement, because it's going to take time and practice, because we're on automatic 95% of the time. That's an actual statistic. 95% of your thoughts are automatic in your subconscious. And so those thoughts turned into actions, right? So when we take a minute and identify either, that secondary and then the primary emotion, sometimes the first emotion that you feel is primary. When we identify that, then we can consciously decide to do something different, but it's going to take time. So give yourself grace in that. Okay. I mean, here it is 2023, and it's been 3 years for me. I'm still practicing because that's not how I was raised. And this is new for me. I'm not going to tell you how old I am, but it's been many, many years before I discovered this. So now it's just been 3 since I did discover it, and I've got to practice that. Okay. So when you identify that feeling and why you feel that way, now we can move on to what is it that I need differently from that person, from that situation. And again, a lot of times you already know that in your gut. And that's something I love to work with my coaching clients on. Like, in your gut what you want, but a lot of times you don't have permission to do that. You don't have permission from yourself. You don't have permission because of a belief that you have from maybe when you were raised or something someone said to you at one time. And we just have to give ourselves permission to do that, because it's okay to take care of yourself. So when you now have what you need, now you can draw a boundary around that. So let's use an example. I'm working with a client who was having trouble with someone in her life, and she felt that this person was not treating her well, and she was constantly being hurt, and she was constantly being what she felt was taken advantage of. So when she identified that that was her, that she felt that she was giving more than she was receiving, that she deserved to be treated better, then she could draw a boundary around how that person treated her. So she could decide whether or not to see that person. She could decide whether or not to pick up the phone when they called. She got to set boundaries around that relationship, because then she was able to identify the yuck and the feeling and the emotion around that. And she realized that she needed to be in a relationship where she felt worthy and she felt that the person was respecting her. So she was able to draw boundaries. For myself, I recently was asked to do something on my day off that I didn't want to do. And when I was asked, I politely declined because I have just had a lot on my plate and I needed a day to unplug. I wasn't planning to do anything I didn't want to do. And I wanted to just stay home. So when this person asked me, I declined politely. They pressed more and said, "You won't go." Like they were shocked. I was not going to go do this. And I said, "No, I just really, and I explained why I just really need this day off." And that person was very offended that I would not do that thing because I don't know why, but I said no because I needed to protect my day off. I needed to draw that boundary. I felt awful. I am a people pleaser who's recovering. And so I was so tempted to just give in and say, yes, I'll do that. But I knew that's not what I needed and that I had to stick to that boundary because boundaries are healthy. Okay. Keep telling yourself that because it's hard sometimes. Boundaries are healthy. So that person wanted something, they expected something, but that didn't mean it was mine to make right. Okay. And that's all about carrying another person's bags, blah, blah, blah. That's a different talk. We don't have time for that. But I wanted just to give you a couple of examples. So hopefully you can look into your emotions and your primary and secondary reactions and find out what it is that you do need. And if you already know what you need, then you can go in and draw a boundary around that. And sometimes it's easier when you're able to identify those emotions. Okay. Feel free to ask if you have any questions for me. Would love to answer them. If you feel like digging in deeper with me and that coaching would be fun, I do offer free 30-minute discovery sessions so we can talk, get to know each other. You talk about your concern, and then we decide if it's a good fit or not. Because I'm not a therapist, so I'm not here to do that. Okay. But I am here if you need somebody on your side and you need help digging into things. So I love you. I want the best for you. And I pray that this will really help you to identify your need and draw a boundary if that's what you need. And hopefully that helps you to enjoy your holiday.